Hi everyone, Tallie and Farrell here from Board of It.
And welcome to our review of Kemet, Blood and Sand, a big box filled with giant scorpions, sphinxes, and angry ancient Egyptian gods of war. For between 2 to 5 players, this is a pretty classic dudes on a map game.
Did you say dogs on a map?
No, we said dudes on a map.
Oh, okay.
But there's enough twists in this big box to make it incredibly engaging and fun. So engaging, in fact, that even Tallie enjoys playing.
Blood and Sand is an updated version of the classic game from the Matago Dudes on a Map trilogy of Cyclades, Kemet and Innis, with a new art direction, upgraded components and a slight smoothing out of the rules for new players.
So, should you get Kemet, Blood and Sand if you have original Kemet? What's it like at different player counts? Why does Tallie like it, despite not really liking Dudes on a Map games? All good questions, all of which we plan to answer. So let's hop to it. Kemet, Blood and Sand is played over a series of rounds, with each round broken into 2 phases. The day phase, where players will take their actions, and the night phase, which is where players will gain income and score.
The aim of the game is to have 9 or more fame points, which is just a silly name for victory points, at the beginning of your turn in the day phase. However, the twist comes in that some FP are permanent and some are linked to area control on the main board, so they can be taken away from you. You can earn FP in a variety of ways: by winning a battle as the attacker, by controlling a temple, by controlling 2 temples, by controlling a level 4 pyramid, and by controlling the temple of all gods in the night phase and sacrificing 2 soldiers.
The actions players can do on their turn are actually quite straightforward. The first is you can pray to gain prayer points, which is the game's currency. The next is to move. The move action gives you the option to do a teleportation and a land movement. So a land movement is just moving one adjacent space, or a teleportation is paying 2 prayer points to teleport from a temple you control to any obelisk on the map. You can recruit, which is to pay prayer points equal to the number of troops you want to recruit, and then to recruit those troops from your supply and put them in a district in your city. You can increase the level of one of your pyramids, which is to pay prayer points equal to the level that you're bringing it up to. And finally, you can purchase a power tile of a colour of a pyramid you control. What level of power tile you can buy is related to the level of pyramids you control. This being a level 3 red pyramid would let you buy level 3 and below red tiles. This being a level 1 blue pyramid will only let you buy level 1 blue tiles. The power tiles will provide you with bonuses, upgrades, new actions in all areas of the game.
Much of the game is area control, and when one player moves a troop into another area controlled by another player, a battle occurs. A battle is done through card play, where both players pick one card to play and another card to discard. Then they add up the combat value on that card, along with the number of soldiers they have in an area, any divine intervention cards, and any power-up tiles that add combat bonuses, and the highest value wins. Kemet, Blood and Sand also has relatively simple player actions, but these combine with the multiple ways to score FP and the wonderful variety of power tiles to create real depth of gameplay. These simple actions also mean that unless someone is starting trouble, player turns are pretty quick, so Kemet avoids the usual long stodgy turns of battle game.
But if someone is starting trouble, it's pretty engaging for both those players. We're glad to report that the battle system in Kemet, Blood and Sand is quite excellent. Even though it's a simple card-driven system, it's actually quite multi-dimensional. You see, each combat card you have has different symbols on it, which means that throughout the game you'll have a variety of tactical options available to you. Even better, actually winning a combat doesn't kill the enemy troops. They just have to retreat to an adjacent region, or that player who lost could return them to the supply to gain prayer points for them. To actually kill troops in combat, you have to play combat cards with red blood drop symbols on them. But this can be counteracted by the defensive player playing a combat card with a shield on it, unless there is a black blood drop in play.
This means that different players can aim for different things in the same battle. If someone comes at you and you really have no way of winning, you just can aim to kill as many of their soldiers as possible. If you kill them all, even if they win the battle, they won't score a fame point because they don't hold the territory. Plus, because every player begins the game with the same deck of 8 cards, and you have to discard one every time there's a battle, there's uncertainty around which players have which cards left, so there's a tactical aspect to that. You could pick on a player with only 2 cards left, and that could be an easy win.
Plus, combat is just generally pretty low risk. If you lose, you might not even lose any of your soldiers, but if you do, they're pretty cheap and easy to recruit back into your city. And the thing is, this combination means that the game and the battle is light and breezy in terms of player frustration, but with enough depth to allow intelligent tactical maneuvering. Another aspect of the game that's worth talking about are these wonderful Divine Intervention cards. These are little one-use bonus cards with a wide range of effects that can affect any area of the game. One might let you remove an enemy soldier anywhere on the map. Another might give you instant prayer points to spend there and then. We're big fans of these, and they're all really useful in their own right, but a lot of them are directed at giving you a little edge in battle, and you can play them secretly, which means that your opponents can be in for a wonderfully nasty surprise, and it just gives combat yet another little twist, which is what makes it so great. These are wonderfully tactical, and they can really make a plan that you form in your head pop. Plus, if you can actually get any tiles which increase how many you can draw, you're going to be laughing. So, speaking of, we can now finally discuss the best part of Kemet Blood and Sand, the power tiles. The base game comes with 4 different types. You've got Pokemon Red, you've got Pokemon Blue, you've got Pokemon Diamond, and you've got Pokemon Onyx. Each one does its own little thing. So red tiles are attack focused, blue tiles are defensive focused, diamond tiles are about upgrading your engine. So maybe if you do prayer action, you get an extra prayer point, or your pyramids cost 1 less prayer point to build, things like that. And Onyx is a bit of a mix of everything, but mainly combative and defensive. And there's things such as you can actually buy a bunch of extra troop figures for your army to increase your total potential army pool.
The designers have absolutely nailed this aspect of the gameplay, as pretty much all of the tiles are useful to the majority of players most of the time. These tiles allow players to create near asymmetric factions in exactly the manner they'd like, and provide wonderful wrinkles to otherwise straightforward gameplay. The highlight is, of course, the giant miniatures, which are linked to certain tiles, and if deployed with a troop, provide movement and combat upgrades. I mean, who doesn't want a troop with a giant scorpion? Crucially, Kemet Blood and Sand also includes a wine list, as Shut Up and Sit Down term them, for every player. These lists describe what the effect is of every tile that's in the game, and also what all of the Divine Intervention cards do. This is so important for enjoyable gameplay. Obviously, players don't want to have to ask what a Divine Intervention card does, because then they give away their advantage, and players will often spend time in between turns perusing the list and deciding on a future strategy. We cannot stress enough how important it is that every player has their own, especially when so few games do something like this when it's really needed.
It's not all positive though. See, the rulebook can be a bit of a tough read, even though it's quite short and straightforward. I think rather than being poorly written, it's more of a translation issue in being translated from French. And it's just that the sentence structure isn't quite there, and sometimes things can be put a bit awkwardly. And it just leads to things being more confusing than they have to be, and leaving things open to interpretation, which is really the last thing you want in a highly interactive game. Also, the endgame of Kemet can either be terrifically exciting or terribly long and drawn out. Because it's a crabs in a bucket game, as soon as one player crosses this line, every other player's goal is then to pull them back down or the game's over, which they can often do because of some VP being linked to territory control. And what this means is you just have players jostling back and forth, one player going in front, being pulled down, another player going in front, being pulled down. And this can artificially extend the game. You know, this is a game where you can win on your next turn, and then the game goes on for another 50 minutes. And while this cycle does eventually break, often it's after the game's gone on for uncomfortably long. And it's also often down to just simple things like attrition, turn order, or a bit of luck, which can be disappointing.
On the other hand, this often allows all players to catch up and be in contention for the win. We've never had a game where all players didn't have their nose up against the finish line, which is nice to keep everyone involved. Also, if it doesn't go on too long, the end game can be wonderfully tense and exciting.
Now, Kemet Blood and Sand is for between 2 to 5 players, and it probably is a little more interesting at those higher player counts. The game was definitely shaken up a bit when we played at 4 compared to when we played with 2 or 3. And all of this comes from the map being opened up, so there's more spaces to inhabit, and also just that there's more players to attack. Now, the negative of having these higher player counts is that you're going to have more battles more times. And particularly in the early stages, if 2 other people that aren't you are having a battle, you're not really that interested in the minute details of it. You just want to see the aftermath. And because turns can be so quick, it creates a real choppy flow to the game, like a real stop-start, which isn't so great. But, you know, it's actually, Kemet is a game that's good at any player count. And it's not one that would say buy if you're only going to play with 2 players. But if you have it, it's definitely worth playing at 2 players.
We will say though, we're not huge fans of how the board is altered depending on the number of players. The board is a pretty decent size, but Kemet is a bit of a table hogging game, so there's not much space around you. But weirdly, they've decided to split the board lengthways depending on how many players there are. So if you're playing with 3 or less, you're all using the same side of the board, which seems like a bit of a waste of table space and is always going to be awkward for at least one of you. Bit weird. So, should you get this if you own Kemet already?
No, we don't think so. It just seems to be original Kemet, just updated and revised a little bit. I think there's some new tiles, updated artwork, maybe some new figurines. That's about it. They actually had in the same Kickstarter a version 1.5 upgrade kit for the original Kemet, and that might be worth looking into.
We never played the original, so we might be wrong, but a quick scan of the original rulebook showed no drastic changes.
So, final thoughts. This is one of the best examples of the dudes on a map genre that even managed to draw in non-fans. With its simple core actions, mixed with depth of gameplay, from the huge variety of power tiles, ways to score FP, and the tactical combat options, this is really a game we'd recommend to a very wide range of people.
Look, it's fun. It's just really, really fun. But if you have Kemet Original, you don't need it. And if you're not going to be playing it with at least 3+ players most of the time, you don't want it. And that is our review of Kemet Blood and Sand. So thank you for watching. Sven, stop licking me. And if you guys could subscribe if you're not already, it would be incredible. And also comment, like, all the usual stuff. But we do want you to comment so we can discuss the game with you, hear what you think about Kemet, original Kemet, power tiles, Scorpion miniatures, all of it. But thanks for watching as always. We really appreciate it. Oh my God, bye-bye.